March 14, 1943, North Atlantic, 480 miles southwest of Iceland. Commander Robert Henley stands on the bridge of the HMS Starling, his knuckles white against the cold metal railing. Around him, 42 merchant ships plow through 12-foot swells, carrying 240,000 tons of fuel, grain, steel, and ammunition toward Britain. The convoy designated HX-229A stretches across 6 miles of gray water. Henley knows what's waiting beneath the surface. Intelligence reports indicate at least 17 U-boats forming a patrol line directly across their route. The Wolfpack tactic has sunk 341 Allied ships in the past 4 months alone. His escort group consists of just 7 warships to protect 42 merchants. The math doesn't work. Doctrine says he needs a 2-to-1 ratio of escorts to threats. He has less than half that. What Commander Henley doesn't know is that the routine he's about to implement will rewrite the rulebook on convoy defense. What nobody realizes yet is that the answer to beating the Wolfpack isn't more ships or better weapons. It's silence. The wind carries sleet across the deck. Henley checks his watch. In 90 minutes, sunset will leave them exposed under a hunter's moon. The U-boats prefer to attack on the surface at night, invisible in the darkness, using their speed advantage to outrun the lumbering cargo ships. Standard procedure calls for aggressive sonar sweeps, constant radio chatter between escorts, star shells fired at suspicious contacts, and depth charge patterns dropped at the first hint of a submarine. But Henley has spent 6 months studying the attack reports. He's noticed something the Admiralty hasn't. The Wolfpack works because it hunts in coordinated groups. One U-boat spots the convoy, radios the position to headquarters in France, and within hours, a dozen submarines converge from different compass points. They share targeting information, coordinate attack sequences, and overwhelm the escorts with simultaneous threats from multiple directions. Between January and March 1943, this tactic has achieved a kill ratio of 8 merchant ships sunk for every U-boat lost. British convoys are losing the tonnage war. At current rates, the island will run out of fuel and food within 11 months. If you want to see how one commander's controversial decision changed naval warfare forever, consider subscribing. We're covering the tactics that textbooks skip. Henley's problem is simple and brutal. His 7 escorts cannot be everywhere at once. The convoy spans 6 miles by 2 miles. That's 12 square miles of ocean to defend. Each escort can effectively monitor approximately 1 square mile with sonar and visual observation. The U-boats own the gaps. Traditional doctrine says fill those gaps with more ships. But there are no more ships. The Royal Navy has already stretched its escort groups to breaking point. 57 convoys are at sea simultaneously, all requiring protection. So Henley tries something else. At 1640 hours, he issues orders that make his senior officers exchange worried glances. All escorts will cease active sonar pinging. They will maintain strict radio silence except for absolute emergencies. They will not fire star shells. They will not drop speculative depth charge patterns. Instead, they will listen. Just listen. The warships will use passive sonar only, detecting submarines by the sound they make rather than by bouncing sound waves off their hulls. Lieutenant Commander Walsh, captain of the corvette Clematis, signals his concern. The message comes by lamp, Morse code flickering across the gray water. His question is direct and pointed. Without active sonar, the escorts operate blind. How can they protect the convoy if they cannot locate the enemy? Henley's response is equally brief. The escorts don't need to know where all the submarines are. They need the submarines not to know where the convoy is. The distinction seems academic to Walsh and the other escort commanders. U-boats will spot the convoy visually within hours regardless of radio silence. But Henley understands something about Wolfpack doctrine that most Allied commanders have missed. The U-boats don't just hunt by sight, they hunt by sound. And right now, every convoy in the Atlantic is screaming its position across hundreds of miles of ocean. Active sonar sends powerful sound pulses through the water. These pulses travel 12 to 15 miles under good conditions. A U-boat's hydrophone operator can detect active sonar from 20 miles away, well beyond visual range. The constant pinging creates a sound beacon that draws submarines like moths to flame. Then the escorts compound the problem with radio transmissions, coordinating their search patterns, sharing contacts, requesting support. The radio signals give away not just position but heading, speed, and defensive disposition. Henley has calculated the numbers. An average convoy crossing generates approximately 340 active sonar pings per hour across its escort screen. Add 120 radio transmissions during the same period. The Wolfpack headquarters in Lorient, France, operates direction-finding stations that can triangulate a convoy's position to within 5 miles based on radio traffic alone. Then they vector in the nearest U-boats. The hunters become the hunted by announcing themselves. What if the convoy goes silent? The idea violates every principle in the escort commander's handbook. The manual, written after hard lessons in World War I and updated through 1942, emphasizes aggressive prosecution of contacts. Find the submarine, attack it, drive it down, keep it down. Force it to submerge and drain its batteries. Make it choose between drowning or surfacing into gunfire. But that doctrine assumes enough escorts to maintain continuous pressure. Henley doesn't have enough escorts. He has something else, though. He has Lieutenant Peter Gretton's analysis. Gretton isn't with this convoy. He's in Liverpool, recovering from pneumonia after his last crossing. But 3 weeks ago, he shared a bottle of scotch with Henley and explained his theory. Gretton had commanded escorts on 11 convoy runs. He'd sunk 2 U-boats and lost 19 merchant ships. The math haunted him. He started logging every sonar contact, every radio transmission, every attack sequence. He noticed patterns. U-boats attacked most successfully between 2200 and 0300 hours. They surfaced under cover of darkness, used their diesel engines to achieve 17 knots surface speed, overtook the convoy, positioned themselves ahead of the leading ships, and dove to periscope depth for torpedo attacks. But before the attack phase, there was a positioning phase. The submarines had to find the convoy's exact heading and speed. They did this by tracking the sound signature. A 9-knot convoy generates specific acoustic patterns. The merchant ship's engines create a low-frequency rumble. Their propellers cavitate at predictable intervals, but the escorts add distinct high-frequency signatures. Sonar pings, radio static, high-speed turbine whine from destroyers racing between stations. These sounds travel farther and give away not just location but tactical disposition. The U-boat commander learns which sectors have heavy escort presence and which have gaps. Gretton's theory was straightforward. Eliminate the escort noise, and the U-boats lose their targeting data. The submarines would know a convoy existed somewhere in the general area, but they couldn't pinpoint it without the acoustic overlay. They'd be forced to search visually, which meant coming close enough to be spotted themselves. Henley decided to test it. Now, as sunset approaches, his 7 escorts drift into their stations without speaking. The sonar operators shut down their active systems and switch to passive hydrophones. The radio rooms go dark, except for one encrypted receiver monitoring Admiralty broadcasts. The change is immediate and eerie. On the bridge of HMS Starling, the only sounds are wind, waves, and the steady thrum of the ship's own engines. The sonar compartment reports contacts by signal lamp, flashing Morse code to the bridge rather than using voice circuits. It's slower, it's more difficult, but it's silent. The escorts communicate through methods that feel almost antique for 1943. Signal lamps, flag hoists, carefully timed changes in station keeping that convey meaning through position rather than words. Walsh, on Clematis, signals again. He reports a possible contact, bearing 270 degrees, range 4,000 yards. The passive sonar operator heard something, maybe propeller noise, maybe just a whale or a temperature layer creating false echoes. Standard procedure says investigate immediately. Chase it down, confirm or eliminate the contact, but chasing means high-speed engines, cavitating propellers, active sonar to maintain tracking. It means announcing presence. Henley considers the request. Every instinct of his training screams to go after the contact. That's what escort commanders do. They hunt submarines. But he's committed to testing Gretton's theory. He signals back with a negative. The escorts will maintain station. They will monitor only. No pursuit, no active engagement. The tension is brutal. Somewhere out there, a U-boat might be lining up a shot. Henley's decision means accepting uncertainty. It means trusting that silence provides more protection than aggression. His officers don't like it. The merchant captains, when they notice the absence of the usual sonar pings and radio chatter, like it even less. Several signal queries. Is the escort group malfunctioning? Have the warships abandoned the convoy? Henley responds to each inquiry the same way. The escorts remain on station. Communications protocols have changed. All is well, but he can feel the doubt spreading through the convoy like cold water. The merchants are accustomed to hearing their protectors. The constant ping of sonar is reassuring. It means someone is searching, someone is watching. Silence feels like abandonment. At 1847 hours, the sun drops below the horizon. The moon rises 3 hours later, full and bright, turning the wave tops silver. Perfect hunting conditions for the wolf pack. These are the hours when U-boats own the North Atlantic. They surface in the darkness, their low profiles nearly invisible against the black water, and they use their superior surface speed to maneuver into attack position. The merchant ships, plodding along at 9 knots, are helpless targets once the submarines get ahead of them. Henley's lookouts report a distant shadow on the starboard horizon at 22:15 hours. The shape is indistinct, visible for perhaps 30 seconds before disappearing behind a swell, possibly a submarine conning tower, possibly driftwood or a whale or a trick of moonlight on water. Doctrine says, illuminate with star shell immediately, confirm the target. If it's a U-boat, engage with gunfire and force it to dive. Henley gives different orders. The convoy will maintain blackout. No illumination. Track visually only. The shadow disappears and doesn't return. Was it a U-boat? No one knows. But no star shell arced into the sky. No radio transmission reported the contact to other escorts or to shore stations. The convoy remains dark and quiet, a ghost formation sliding through the moonlit Atlantic. At 2340 hours, the passive sonar on HMS Wren detects propeller noise. The hydrophone operator is experienced, a veteran of 21 crossings. He identifies the sound as diesel engines, surface running, bearing 045 degrees, range approximately 6,000 yards. A U-boat almost certainly, moving parallel to the convoy's course. The submarine is close, dangerously close. The normal response is immediate and overwhelming. Turn toward the contact, accelerate to attack speed, close the range and force the submarine to dive. Drop depth charges in a standard pattern. Keep the pressure on until the U-boat either surfaces in surrender or sinks or escapes beyond sonar range. But that response means giving away position. It means high-speed turbines screaming across the water. It means active sonar pulses echoing for miles. It means radio transmissions coordinating the attack with other escorts. And it might mean wasting fuel in a chase that lasts hours while other sectors of the convoy go undefended. Henley signals Wren with instructions that violate everything in the tactical manual. Maintain course and speed, continue monitoring, do not engage. The signal lamp flickers across the dark water. On Wren's bridge, the captain reads the message twice to make sure he understands correctly. He's being ordered to let a U-boat go. He's being told to track it passively and do nothing. That's when the real test begins. The U-boat runs parallel for 17 minutes. The hydrophone operator on Wren tracks every turn of its propellers, every slight variation in engine noise. The submarine is searching, making a slow sweep across the expected convoy route. The U-boat commander knows from headquarters that a convoy should be in this area. Direction-finding stations have triangulated Allied radio traffic to this general zone. But the commander can't pin down the exact location. He's hunting, probing, listening for the telltale sounds that will guide him to his targets. He hears nothing. The low-frequency rumble of merchant ship engines is there, a distant background noise that could be 10 miles away or 3 miles away. Sound propagation in water is unpredictable, bent by temperature layers and currents. Without the high-frequency overlay of escort activity, the acoustic signature is ambiguous. The U-boat commander has a bearing to the general noise, but no range, no precise heading, no speed calculation. Then, the propeller noise fades. The hydrophone operator on Wren reports the contact growing fainter, moving away. The submarine is departing. The captain of Wren signals this information to Starling. Henley allows himself a cautious hope. The U-boat commander gave up. He searched for 17 minutes and found nothing definitive. He's moving to another search area. Why? Henley pieces it together in his mind. The U-boat commander is searching, not attacking. He knows a convoy should be in this zone, but he can't localize it. Without the sonar pings and radio transmissions to guide him, he's hunting blind. The visual silhouette of merchant ships is visible from perhaps 4 miles on a bright moonlit night. But the ocean is vast. 4-mile visibility in 3 dimensions means searching roughly 200 square miles to guarantee finding the convoy. The U-boat is guessing, and it guessed wrong. By 0130 hours, the submarine's engine noise has vanished completely from passive sonar. The convoy continues southwest at 9 knots. No torpedoes have been launched. No attacks materialized. Henley stands on the bridge and watches the moon track across the sky. His gamble is working, but the night isn't over, and there are at least 16 more U-boats out there somewhere. If this kind of tactical innovation interests you, hit that like button. It helps us cover more forgotten doctrines that changed history. At 0245 hours, a different U-boat surfaces directly astern of the convoy, range 8,000 yards. This contact is detected visually by the lookouts on the merchant ship Baron Elgin, which is steaming in the rear rank of the formation. The merchant captain signals the sighting to the nearest escort. This one is closer than the previous contacts, more dangerous. The submarine begins a high-speed approach, attempting to overtake the convoy and position ahead for an attack run. This is the classic Wolfpack maneuver. The U-boat uses its 17-knot surface speed to race around the convoy's flank, get ahead of the leading ships, then dive to periscope depth and wait. When the convoy steams into range, the submarine fires a spread of torpedoes and disappears before the escorts can respond. It's a tactic that has killed hundreds of merchant ships. Henley watches the range close. The lookouts call out the decreasing distance, 7,000 yards, 6,500 yards. The U-boat is committed now, charging through the moonlit water. His officers wait for orders to engage, turn the rear escorts around, race to intercept, drive the submarine down before it can get into attack position. Every second of delay gives the U-boat more advantage, but engaging means breaking silence. It means the entire Wolfpack will hear the attack and know exactly where the convoy is. Henley gives no order to attack. He maintains the silence discipline. At 6,000 yards, something changes. The U-boat alters course. It's veering away from the convoy's actual track, angling toward a point in empty ocean. The submarine is searching the wrong sector. The U-boat commander is expecting the convoy to be farther east, based on its last known position from direction-finding data. That data is now hours old. The convoy's strict radio silence means there's been no update. The submarine is chasing a ghost, pursuing where the convoy should have been if it had maintained its earlier heading and speed. But convoys don't maintain perfect headings. They zigzag to confuse submarine attacks. They alter speed to adjust formation. Without constant acoustic updates, the U-boat commander's estimate degrades rapidly. By 0320 hours, the submarine has raced past the convoy's actual position, still searching for targets that are now miles behind it. The hydrophone operators track the propeller noise fading into the distance. Another miss. Dawn breaks cold and gray at 0615 hours. Henley's convoy has traveled 189 nautical miles since implementing radio silence. Not a single torpedo has been fired at them. Not a single ship lost. The officers begin to believe. The lookouts relax slightly. The merchant captains, who spent the night certain they were about to die, allow themselves to hope. But believing isn't proof. One night's success could be luck, random chance. The U-boats might simply have been looking in the wrong places. The real test comes on night 2. March 15, 1943. Intelligence reports indicate the Wolfpack has grown to 21 U-boats. The submarines are spreading across a 120-mile patrol line, determined to intercept HX-229A. Headquarters in Lorient has made this convoy a priority target. The numbers are overwhelming. 21 submarines against 7 escorts and 42 merchants. By every calculation, by every historical precedent, this convoy should die. Multiple U-boats should penetrate the screen. Torpedoes should rip into the merchant ships. The Atlantic should claim another dozen hulls. Henley maintains silence discipline. No active sonar, minimal radio use, and only on emergency frequencies with encrypted bursts. The escorts communicate by signal lamp and flag hoist, methods so old-fashioned they feel almost quaint in 1943. But they work without broadcasting the convoy's position across the Atlantic. The merchant captains, now understanding the doctrine, maintain their own discipline. No unnecessary radio traffic, no position reports, no weather updates or routine communications. The U-boats find them anyway. Visual sighting at 1920 hours. A submarine surfaces briefly on the southern horizon, observes the convoy's silhouette against the fading daylight, then dives. The lookouts on HMS Woodpecker catch the sighting. A conning tower, visible for perhaps 20 seconds before the submarine crash dives. The U-boat commander has seen the convoy. Within minutes, he would normally radio the sighting to headquarters. The Wolfpack would converge. Every submarine within 100 miles would turn toward these coordinates. But something changes this time. The U-boat that spotted the convoy tries to send its position report. The radio transmission is detected by Allied direction-finding stations in Iceland. The stations are listening constantly, triangulating every German transmission, building a picture of U-boat deployments across the Atlantic. They pick up the contact report, but the submarine's report is incomplete and confused. The intercept operators notice the uncertainty in the German transmission. The U-boat commander reports the convoy's position with a 20-mile error in the coordinates. Why? Because he's estimating based on visual bearing and distance without acoustic confirmation. He saw ships on the horizon, but he couldn't determine their exact course and speed through sound analysis. He made his best guess based on optical observation, but optical observation in the open ocean is notoriously unreliable. Range estimation depends on knowing the target size. Course calculation requires multiple observations over time. The U-boat commander surfaced, took one quick look before diving to avoid detection, and transmitted his estimate. His estimate is wrong. The incorrect position report sends other submarines to the wrong intercept point. 3 U-boats race toward coordinates that will put them 15 miles north of the actual convoy track. They search through the night, their hydrophone operators straining to hear the distinctive sounds of a convoy. They find empty ocean. By dawn, they've burned fuel and wasted hours chasing coordinates that were outdated and inaccurate from the moment they were transmitted. Meanwhile, 2 other submarines, hunting independently without waiting for headquarters coordination, stumble into proximity with the convoy by chance. At 23:15 hours, one surfaces 5,000 yards off the port quarter. This is the closest contact yet. The submarine is near enough that its silhouette is clearly visible to multiple ships in the convoy. Lookouts can see the water streaming off its deck as it surfaces. They can see the conning tower, the deck gun, even figures moving on the bridge as the German crew takes up watch positions. Henley faces the critical decision. The submarine is close enough to be genuinely dangerous. Close enough that a single torpedo spread could hit 2 or 3 merchants before the convoy could react. Doctrine demands an immediate depth charge attack. Turn the nearest escort toward the contact. Race in at flank speed. Force the submarine to dive or destroy it on the surface with gunfire. But attacking means going loud. It means turbines screaming. It means depth charges exploding. It means every U-boat within 20 miles will hear the attack and converge on the sound. He chooses silence. The escort nearest the contact, HMS Woodpecker, receives its orders by signal lamp. Track the submarine visually and with passive sonar. Do not engage unless the U-boat begins an attack run. The captain of Woodpecker signals acknowledgement, though his crew is confused and frustrated. They have a perfect target. The U-boat is on the surface, vulnerable. The corvette could close the range and open fire within minutes. But orders are orders. The submarine cruises slowly on the surface, heading northwest at perhaps 8 knots. Its commander is searching, scanning the horizon with binoculars. The moon is less full tonight, providing less illumination. The U-boat crew probably sees nothing but dark water and darker sky. They know a convoy is nearby. Headquarters told them so. But nearby in the mid-Atlantic could mean anywhere within 50 square miles. After 43 minutes of fruitless searching, the U-boat gives up and moves east, increasing speed to 15 knots. The hydrophone operators on Woodpecker track the propeller noise until it fades beyond detection range. Another submarine has passed within killing distance and departed without firing a shot. The silence doctrine holds. The convoy remains hidden in plain sight, invisible not because it cannot be seen, but because it cannot be heard well enough to pinpoint. By the time HX-2129A reaches the mid-Atlantic air gap, the zone beyond land-based aircraft cover where convoys are most vulnerable, it has evaded the Wolfpack for 4 consecutive days. The cost in ships sunk stands at 0. The silence doctrine is working beyond Henley's most optimistic projections, but it's not without consequences. The price of silence is measured in ways that don't appear in the official reports. On March 17th, a genuine emergency occurs. One of the merchant ships, the SS Maplewood, suffers a catastrophic boiler failure. She loses power and begins to fall behind the convoy. Standard procedure requires immediate radio communication to coordinate rescue or scuttling. The convoy commander needs to know which ship is in trouble, what the problem is, whether repairs are possible, how long repairs might take, and what assistance is required. But radio silence means the escorts don't immediately know the merchant is in trouble. Maplewood tries to signal by lamp, but the message is slow and the following seas make lamp communication difficult. By the time visual signals convey the situation to the escorts and the information relays to Henley on Starling, Maplewood is 3 miles astern, drifting. The convoy cannot slow down. Maintaining schedule is critical. Every hour of delay increases the chance of interception. Henley sends Clematis back to assist. Walsh and his corvette reach the crippled freighter at dawn. Maplewood's crew has rigged emergency repairs, cannibalizing parts from auxiliary systems to patch the main boiler. The chief engineer reports they can make 5 knots, perhaps 6 if they push the patch systems beyond safe limits. But 5 knots is not enough. The convoy is steaming at 9 knots and pulling farther away with every hour. Maplewood cannot rejoin. Walsh faces an impossible choice. He can stay with the crippled ship and protect her alone, or he can abandon her to save the convoy. Standard doctrine would be clear. One escort cannot adequately protect one merchant against multiple submarines. The corvette should rejoin the convoy where it can contribute to the collective defense. Leave Maplewood to proceed independently and hope she reaches port before the U-boats find her. It's cold mathematics. One ship sacrificed gives 41 ships better odds. Walsh stays. He chooses the individual ship over the group. It's the human choice, the emotional choice, and it costs him. A U-boat finds Maplewood and Clematis at 1340 hours. The submarine has been searching this area based on direction-finding data from days earlier. It's looking for the convoy, but finds instead a lone merchant and a single escort. The odds are overwhelmingly in the submarine's favor. The U-boat attacks from periscope depth. 2 torpedoes launched from 1,200 yards. The first misses by 30 feet, passing ahead of Maplewood's bow. The second strikes amidships, detonating in the cargo hold. The explosion tears a 40-foot hole in the hull. Maplewood begins to sink immediately, taking on water faster than the pumps can handle. She goes down in 11 minutes. Walsh's Clematis rescues 31 of 47 crew members. The corvette races through the debris field, pulling men from the oil-slicked water. 16 men go down with the ship, trapped below decks or pulled under by suction. Walsh searches for 2 more hours, but finds no additional survivors. Then he turns northwest and begins the chase to rejoin the convoy, now 60 miles ahead. Henley receives the report via encrypted radio burst. 1 ship lost, 16 men dead. It's the first loss of the crossing, and it weighs on him. Maplewood might have survived if the convoy had broken radio silence earlier, if help had arrived faster, if Walsh had rejoined the convoy instead of staying to protect a crippled ship. The mathematics are brutal but undeniable. Without silence discipline, historical data suggests the Wolfpack would have claimed 10 to 12 ships by now. 1 loss is tragic, but 12 would be catastrophic. The Admiralty takes notice. By March 20th, 3 other convoy commanders have adopted variations of Henley's silence routine. The results are mixed and reveal the difficulty of implementing the doctrine. Commander Stephen Beatty, escorting convoy ONS-4, implements strict radio silence but allows active sonar. He believes the acoustic advantage comes primarily from eliminating radio transmissions while maintaining active subsurface search. He loses 5 ships in 2 nights. The active sonar gives away position just as Henley predicted. The U-boats track the sonar pings, plot the escort positions, identify the gaps in coverage, and slip through. Commander Donald McIntyre tries complete silence with convoy SC-125, but breaks discipline when a U-boat is spotted on the surface at dawn. The submarine is close, perhaps 3,000 yards from the nearest merchant. McIntyre's escorts race to attack, engines screaming as they work up to flank speed. The depth charge attack drives the U-boat deep and probably damages it, but the noise draws in 4 additional submarines. The other U-boats hear the explosions, know exactly where the convoy is, and converge. McIntyre loses 3 merchants and 1 escort destroyer over the next 12 hours. The lesson becomes clear through these failures. Silence works only if maintained absolutely. 1 break in discipline, 1 loud contact, 1 moment of reverting to traditional aggressive tactics, and the advantage evaporates. The Wolfpack hears it. Every submarine in range turns toward the sound. The doctrine requires iron discipline and acceptance of profound uncertainty. Many commanders cannot accept it. They need the reassurance of active sonar sweeping the ocean. They need the aggressive pursuit that feels like doing something. Henley's willingness to do nothing, to simply listen and evade, is psychologically difficult for men trained to hunt and attack. But the numbers tell an undeniable story. Between March 1943 and May 1943, convoys employing strict silence discipline lose an average of 1.8 ships per crossing. Convoys using traditional aggressive tactics lose an average of 7.3 ships per crossing. The difference is stark enough that even the most skeptical officers cannot ignore it. The Royal Navy begins formal evaluation of the silent convoy routine in April. By May, it's incorporated into revised escort doctrine, with critical modifications based on the early implementations. First, silence discipline applies only in the mid-Atlantic air gap, where aircraft cannot provide cover. Closer to land, aggressive tactics work better because patrol planes can respond to radio calls for help within minutes. The doctrine is zone-specific, not universal. Second, escorts are authorized to break silence for genuine emergencies, defined as submarine contacts inside 2,000 yards or torpedo attacks already in progress. Beyond 2,000 yards, maintain silence and evade. This gives commanders a clear decision point and removes some of the agonizing uncertainty. Third, convoys receive additional training in non-acoustic communication methods, signal lamps, flag hoists, and even underwater sound signals using precisely timed propeller beats become standard. The escorts develop a vocabulary of maneuvers and position changes that convey tactical information without radio transmission. The doctrine spreads through the escort groups over the next 2 months. By June 1943, convoy losses in the Atlantic dropped to their lowest level since 1941. The U-boats, deprived of easy acoustic targeting, are forced to search visually. This reduces their effective hunt area by approximately 75%. A submarine using acoustic tracking can monitor a corridor roughly 40 miles wide. Visual searching in daylight covers perhaps 8 miles. At night, even less. The Wolfpack tactic begins to fail, not because the submarines are less capable, but because they cannot find their targets efficiently. German naval intelligence notices the change. Interrogations of captured U-boat crews reveal widespread confusion. Submarine commanders report that convoys seem to disappear in mid-ocean. Acoustic tracking has become unreliable. Coordination between boats breaks down because position reports are based on visual sightings that prove inaccurate. Admiral Karl Donitz, commander of the U-boat fleet, orders increased surface patrols to compensate for the loss of acoustic tracking advantage. But surface patrols make the submarines vulnerable to Allied aircraft, which are now equipped with improved centimetric radar that can detect a surfaced U-boat from 20 miles away, even at night. The consequences compound in ways Donitz cannot counter. Between June and August 1943, 43 U-boats are sunk. Many are caught on the surface while searching for convoys they can no longer reliably track. The kill ratio reverses. The Allies are now sinking U-boats faster than Germany can build them. Construction takes 8 months per boat. Training crews takes another 3 months. The mathematics of attrition turn against the submarines. Historians later identify May 1943 as the turning point in the Battle of the Atlantic. Donitz withdraws his submarines from the North Atlantic convoy routes on May 24, admitting temporary defeat. The withdrawal comes after a month in which U-boats sank only 34 merchant ships while losing 41 submarines. The math no longer works for Germany. The Wolfpack cannot sustain those losses. The silent convoy routine isn't the only factor in this victory. Improved centimetric radar, long-range B-24 Liberator aircraft closing the air gap, more escort carriers providing organic air cover, and better depth charges all contribute. But silence discipline is the tactical innovation that makes the others effective. It buys time for convoys to reach air cover. It disperses the Wolfpack by denying them targeting information. It forces U-boats into visual searches that expose them to aircraft attack. Robert Henley receives a Distinguished Service Order for his actions in March 1943. The citation mentions innovative tactical leadership under extreme circumstances. It doesn't mention silence specifically. The doctrine is still classified in 1943, a tactical secret the Allies don't want to reveal. But Henley knows what he accomplished. His 7 escorts brought 41 of 42 ships home across 2,800 miles of U-boat-infested ocean. The lesson extends far beyond World War II. Modern naval doctrine still emphasizes emissions control, the practice of limiting radar, radio, and sonar transmissions to reduce detectability. Nuclear submarines operate under strict silence protocols, recognizing that sound is the primary detection method in undersea warfare. The principle Henley discovered in 1943 remains valid 80 years later. In certain tactical situations, listening is more powerful than shouting. But there's a deeper insight that transcends technology and tactics. Henley succeeded because he questioned foundational assumptions. The Escort Commander's Handbook said, "Find the enemy and attack. Use every sensor, every weapon, every advantage. Aggression wins battles." Henley asked a different question. What if the enemy's doctrine depends on my predictability? What if my aggression is exactly what he's counting on? What if the pattern I'm following is the pattern that's killing us? The Wolfpack tactic worked because it exploited Allied doctrine. The U-boats knew convoys would ping with active sonar. They knew escorts would radio for help and coordinate by voice circuit. They knew the defensive pattern and could predict the gaps in coverage. Henley broke the pattern. He made his convoy unpredictable, not by changing course randomly or varying speed, but by making it silent. The U-boats, trained and equipped to hunt noisy targets, couldn't adapt quickly enough. Innovation often comes from unexpected places and unexpected people. Henley wasn't a technology specialist. He didn't invent new weapons or sensors. He didn't have access to secret intelligence or advanced equipment. He simply looked at the same information everyone else had and saw it differently. He counted the sonar pings and radio transmissions. He calculated how far those sounds traveled through water. He asked what the enemy heard when a convoy passed. Then he decided to give them silence instead of noise. The convoy, HX-229A, arrives in Liverpool on March 22, 1943. 41 merchant ships discharge 235,000 tons of cargo onto the crowded docks. The usual chaos of arrival unfolds. Cranes swing over holds. Trucks line up to receive grain and steel and ammunition. Longshoremen and naval officers process paperwork. No one cheers. Successful convoy arrivals are routine, or at least they're supposed to be. The merchant crews disperse to pubs and boarding houses. The escort sailors refuel and rearm for the next crossing, which will begin in 72 hours. Henley walks the dock after Starling ties up. He watches the grain being unloaded from the merchant ship Empire Sunbeam. That grain will become bread for 1 million people. The steel from Baron Elgin will build Spitfires and Lancasters. The fuel from Nicania will power the fighters and bombers that will eventually carry the war back to Germany. All of it arrived because the convoy stayed silent. He thinks about the choices that brought them here. The decision to ignore the contact at 22:15 hours on the first night. The submarine that ran parallel for 17 minutes while he did nothing. The U-boat that surfaced 5,000 yards away and departed without finding them. He thinks about Lieutenant Commander Walsh and the choice that cost Maplewood and 16 lives. Every decision carried risk. Some risks paid off, one didn't. War is mathematics written in human lives. The numbers matter because behind every number is a name, a family, a story that ends in the cold Atlantic or continues in a Liverpool pub. The silent convoy doctrine remains in use through the end of the Atlantic campaign. It's refined, adapted, combined with other innovations. By 1944, convoy losses are so low that U-boats shift to mining operations and coastal raids, abandoning the open ocean Wolfpack entirely. The silence that Henley implemented on March 14, 1943, becomes part of the foundation for Allied victory in the longest campaign of the war. The tactic saves an estimated 400 merchant ships and 12,000 lives between March 1943 and May 1945. The cargo those ships delivered sustains Britain through the final years of war and enables the buildup for the Normandy invasion. Without it, D-Day might have been delayed by months. The strategic consequences ripple forward through history in ways that are impossible to fully calculate. But the tactical lesson is simpler and more immediate. Sometimes the best way to fight is to disappear. Sometimes strength comes from restraint rather than aggression. Sometimes the weapon you need isn't louder or bigger or more violent. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes victory comes not from making more noise than the enemy, but from making less noise than he expects. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Commander Robert Henley stands on the Liverpool dock in the gray March afternoon and watches the cargo come ashore. Somewhere out in the Atlantic, another convoy is forming up. Another group of escorts is preparing to face the Wolfpack. They'll use the doctrine he proved. Some of them will make it home because of what he learned in those 4 days of silence. He lights a cigarette and turns back towards Starling. There's always another crossing. There's always another night in the Wolfpack's hunting ground. But now there's a way through that didn't exist before. A way that depends not on courage or firepower, but on the discipline to stay quiet when everything inside you screams to make noise. The question is this. When everyone else is shouting into the darkness, when doctrine says attack and aggression and constant vigilance, when every instinct demands you do something, do you have the nerve to stay silent?